Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting of the Special Commission on State Institutions to order. I'm Anne Fracht, and I'll be chairing the commission with Kate Benson today. Before we begin, we'd like to let everyone know that the commission meeting is following the open meeting law. Any votes taken during the meeting will be done by a roll call vote. We ask that the commission members please mute themselves when they are not speaking and use the raise hand feature if they would like to speak. Before speaking, please state your name so everyone knows who is talking. For any questions, posted from the audience in the question and answer for this meeting, Cedar will be reviewing the questions and holding them until the end of the meeting. Today's meeting is scheduled for 2 hours. We'll be having a break around 4. Kate, it's up to you.
All right. Hi, this is Kate Benson. I am the other co-chair of this commission. To make sure that everyone can participate in the meeting, we ask the following. We have CART services supporting our meeting today. These are captions that help people follow the discussion. If you need help turning on these captions, please let us know. We ask that people speak at a non-rushed pace and provide yourself with a brief pause for the CART transcriber to write what you have said. We ask that you speak with as few acronyms as possible. Doing so will help all participants to understand essential information that is shared here. We will try to remind folks of these items I just mentioned, if needed, during this meeting and to keep us on track. When we end this meeting, we will have notes made available based on what we talk about today. This meeting is also being recorded, and the videos are available on the Commission's mass.gov page and on YouTube. Next slide, please. And I will turn it over to you, Anne.
We hope everyone's taken a moment to view the agenda. These are the items we'll be discussing today. The welcome and announcements, the recap of last meeting, the vote to approve the last meeting minutes from April 10th, proposed recommendations, next steps, and voting to adjourn. We have some announcements. Cedar will provide a recap of the last meeting. After that, we'll vote to approve the last month's meeting minutes. The bulk of the meeting will be a discussion about what we want to recommend for burials and burial locations. We will also vote on the recommendations for the framework for remembrance. Then we will discuss any next steps and then wrap up the meeting with a vote to adjourn. Next slide, please.
This is Kate Benson again. We have a couple of announcements. The first is that the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Belchertown State School Cemetery and the first resident burials will be celebrated in a memorial service on May 23rd at 1:30 p.m. And Jen did circulate the DDS invitation if anyone is interested in attending. And please feel free to reach out if you have questions about the event. The second, Cedar recently sent along a news article about another fire in an abandoned building on the grounds of the former Fernald State School, which was followed up with a little bit more information about the investigation into that fire. And
And
Over to you.
We'd like to invite Emily from Cedar to provide a high-level recap of our last meeting before we vote to approve the minutes.
Thank you. At the last meeting, it was announced that Victor Hernandez, the Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Massachusetts Department of Developmental Services, was retiring, and so he has since retired. There was a discussion of the framework for remembrance, including a potential disability museum. The commission conducted a brainstorming session on the pros and cons, or what they liked and what they didn't like about the idea to make a physical museum or a digital museum. The records management and access recommendations were also discussed. The commission reviewed and talked about 17 recommendations focused on improving the management, preservation, and access to institutional records. The commission agreed to move forward with voting on all of the recommendations except for one, which needed to be changed. And those recommendations were accepted via vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, Emily. Before we dive into this afternoon's discussions, we have our vote on the minutes from the commission's last meeting in April. Draft copies of the meeting minutes were emailed to members earlier this week. Does anyone have any suggested changes to last meeting's minutes? All right, if there are no changes, we can proceed with the vote. As usual, we'll conduct a roll call vote, but before Cedar reads out everyone's names, do we have a motion to approve the minutes? And please remember to state your name.
Bill Henning makes a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have a second?
Andrew Leverald seconds.
Thank you, Andrew. All right.
Great. Thank you, Kate. This is Christine from Cedar. So I'll now read out members' names in alphabetical order by your last names. When your name is called, please respond with yes, no, present, or abstain. Elise Aaron.
Yeah.
Thank you. Kate Benson.
Yes.
Sister Linda Bessam. Reggie Clark. Yes. James Cooney.
Yes.
Samuel Edwards.
Yes.
Anne Fract.
Yes,
Alex Green.
Yes.
Bill Henning.
Yes.
Camille Karabeck.
Yes.
Andrew Leverell.
Yes.
Evelyn Mateo.
Abstain.
Thank you. And Lori Medeiros. Okay. Oh, my apologies. Vesper Moore and Brenda Rankin.
I'm here twice today.
Thank you. Did I miss anyone? Okay. I think that's it.
thank you. The minutes are approved. Copies of the approved minutes and all materials from our commission meetings are available on the commission's web page. Next slide, please. We have the stakeholder updates.
Folks, this is Alex. So today we'll be voting on the last kind of recommendations, I think the core recommendations that we're after, but I have started trying to do just some outreach to the various stakeholders who will have to take action based on our recommendations, especially after we approved all of the records related stuff last month, just because I know we'll have kind of a tight turnaround on getting the report out and making people aware of it after the meeting on the 15th. And to do that, I think what we'll end up doing is sending out a letter to each of the state agencies where we need them to take certain steps to let them know what we want them to do. That comes at the recommendation of Senator Barrett, and he is one of the stakeholders who I've met with over the last month. So I met with Senator Barrett and with Representative Garbely, and they're the two people who, the two legislators who helped pass the bill to create the commission and really spearheaded that. They'll come speak to us next week. They were incredible. They were blown away by our work. They were really speechless at the quality and the depth. And I think it's difficult for commissions to get a lot done. And often they go on for a long time and they go past their deadline date and they're just hard to get things through. And they were really grateful to see such clear steps and really supportive, and express the fact that if there need to be bills or legislation put forward to make some of these things happen, that they are willing to do that and to help make it happen, which is really nice. I think the big thing that probably will shape some of our discussion later about a museum that they did raise, and I think none of us will be surprised by, is that these are hard times, and money, asking for a large amount of money right now is probably not going to go anywhere. And so they've asked us to think in stages and steps about how we might start to put the Commonwealth on a path toward some kind of museum and memorialization, but at a moment where we recognize that we probably can't ask for a lot of money to do that just yet. Other folks I met with, I met briefly with the Attorney General's office, very briefly with the Secretary of State's office. Trying to think, there have been a couple others. But the general tenor of things is that everybody has the same reaction that the legislators have had. This is a serious issue. They are very surprised and shocked by what we found. They appreciate seeing that there are clear steps that they can take to start to fix this, and they want to do that work. And that's really, really nice to have heard. So that's kind of the summary of where things are at, which is just good. There's a lot of goodwill out there. So I can answer. Sorry, if there are any questions briefly, I can answer any questions, or otherwise we can certainly move into the next stage of stuff, Kate and Ann. Cool. All right. Oh, Ann, I think you are muted.
Thank you. I'd like to turn the discussion over to Samuel Edwards, who'll present the remaining recommendation for records and records access.
Okay, so could I get the next slide, please? So the recommendation that we didn't get a chance to vote on was to modify the laws regarding restricted medical records. So to modify existing laws in order to allow family members to access medical records within 50 years of an individual's death upon proving the person is deceased. Part of what this comes out of is Massachusetts Archives and others hearing a lot of people saying that the court order process is confusing, it's complex. In some cases, it may be a cost barrier for families who don't have a lot of money. And in some cases, I can speak to personal experience that I have experienced someone coming here to the archives all the way from Springfield, thinking that a record would be open after 100 years, and then having to be told no, it isn't. You have to go through this court order process. This person was an 80-year-old woman and really did not, have the bandwidth or the stamina to go through a court order for her aunt's record, who she never got a chance to meet. So just to kind of put into perspective where that's coming from, and then we can vote on this recommendation. Yes, Andrew.
Andrew, you're muted.
Thing. Sorry, just out of curiosity, what is the process that you envision for somebody to establish they're a family member or a descendant? Like, you looking at how do you, if you have different last names, or how's that going to work out?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think probably it would probably be a case by case scenario. In some cases where someone shares a last name, it may be self-evident. But I think we can talk more in detail about what exactly that process would look like, because we would want to ensure that that's, above board and there's clear documentation for someone's relationship to someone, and that it's not, if I say, I'm related to someone. But in a lot of cases, these patrons are doing their genealogical research, and a lot of times they have that documentation anyway. So just to kind of put it out there that a lot of these patrons do have a paper trail of how they're related to this person.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Alex.
The answer to this may be that I'm just, it's not my area of expertise either as a lawyer or an archivist, but there's the HIPAA stuff for health privacy on records that's national law. And I thought that said like it's death plus 50 years before someone can look at a record. So are there other states that have found language that kind of falls, where I'm headed with it, but that kind of idea, basically, is this okay, and do we have an example to do it with?
Yeah, so that would be something that I would want to do a deeper dive into how other states have handled it. My understanding is that HIPAA pertains to active records and not archival records. And that's my understanding from kind of digging a little bit into this. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm an archivist, so just putting that out there. I would want to consult with someone who's more expertise on the law to really make sure that that's above board.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
I'd like to hand it over to Kate to walk us through some of the recommendations for burials and burial locations.
Thanks, Anne. Next slide. We have 5 recommendations for burials and burial locations. We've grouped the recommendations together with other related recommendations. The groupings are recommendations related to known and unknown burial grounds, and recommendations related to disabled dead practices and laws. Next slide, please. Our first recommendation is for the state to make locating unmarked graves a top priority. The Commonwealth needs to take a serious, focused look at where these graves might be on former institutional properties and how likely it is that they're there. This is important because we can't fully address the issue until we understand the full scope of it. Our next recommendation, next slide, please, is to create clear, easy to follow guidelines for everything related to investigating, restoring, and maintaining state institutional cemeteries. We think it's important to pull together a group to start working on this right away. there's a real risk of permanent damage, even when people are trying to help. Without clear guidance, efforts by community members or state officials could accidentally cause harm that can't be undone. Next slide, please. The third recommendation in this group is to set up a perpetual care fund to cover the long-term upkeep of institutional cemeteries. This would help with things like landscaping, maintaining access roads, and general care of the grounds. The funds could also provide grants to support community groups wanting to create memorials at the burial sites of former patients and residents of Massachusetts institutions. While community groups play a crucial role, they just can't bear the ongoing costs of restoration and maintenance on their own. And the majority of those groups are volunteer. They should definitely have a voice in how these cemeteries are restored, but that should happen in partnership with the state and disability advocacy organizations. In the end, the state needs to take on the long-term responsibility for caring for these important historic sites. So I'd like to open up the floor for discussion on the recommendations for burials and burial grounds. The first recommendation, again, was related to known and unknown burial grounds and the identification of such. Okay. Any questions on the guidelines recommendation for creating guidelines for numerous groups to follow when it comes to these burial grounds? Okay. And finally, the Perpetual Care Fund. Are there any questions or discussions to be had about the Perpetual Care Fund? Okay. I think, Anne, it's over to you. We actually are like way ahead of time.
Yeah, I think we could go on a little further.
Yeah, yeah. I would like to just move on and present the next two recommendations, which should carry us to 4 o'clock for the break. This is one that we've discussed before, and we had a really a great quick discussion about this one. We have one recommendation to repeal Chapter 113 of the Massachusetts General Laws. This is the law that allows medical schools to request and use unclaimed bodies from state institutions, including current state-run facilities, for scientific and medical research. Section 4 in particular of this law states that bodies shall be used only for the promotion of anatomical science in the Commonwealth in such manner as not to outrage public feeling. We believe that using the bodies of disabled people without proper consent is problematic and can understandably upset the public. This law is outdated, as medical schools now have other pathways for obtaining cadavers through anatomical donation programs. If the legislature and government do not take action to change this law, we recommend that the Attorney General intervene to prevent these practices. Next slide, please. Our second recommendation in this section is to request a formal apology from the medical schools, institutions, and government agencies that use the bodies of deceased disabled individuals for medical or scientific research without their consent. These organizations should also be required to create a public registry of any remains or related materials in their possession. This would provide loved ones and descendants with a way to locate and honor those who were taken. We do need to fully understand the extent of what happened, and those who benefited, whether intellectually, professionally, or financially, must acknowledge their role and take responsibility by offering a sincere public apology. These actions are essential for ensuring accountability and transparency. So I'd like to open up the floor for discussion on these two recommendations. Alex.
Hey, this is Alex. On the first one on chapter 113, I think just from the earlier mention the meetings that I've had the last couple of weeks, I think there would be support for doing that in the legislature, and I guess I'm wondering if you think that it's a good step to maybe, legislative process can go slow, even with repealing something. Should we be asking the Attorney General's office to take a short-term action on this? Like kind of like say stop for now until we can try to push something as a repeal forward. And my second question is relates to kind of both, is do we have any sense? I understand this was done in the past, and we can kind of track examples of where the disabled dead were taken by institutions, but do we have a sense of how much this has been used in the modern era? Because I want to make sure that the way we characterize what's going on or what has gone on is also fair. If, for instance, the medical schools say we don't do that anymore and we haven't done that in X number of years or whatever it is. So those are my two questions. Thanks so much.
And
Hi, yes, this is Jen Fugelstad from Cedar. Just to kind of follow up on what you were just talking about, Alex, when we interviewed people from the Harvard anatomical gift program, they let us know that really they have not had to request or look for bodies to be donated probably since the early 1940s, late 1930s. So it's been many, many years, and the modern day anatomical gift donation program has met those needs for the state's medical schools. Thank you.
It's really helpful. Thank you so much.
absolutely.
So it's really it's an old practice. It doesn't make it any less shocking and upsetting, but it's sounds like, at least in that instance, an old practice that was done and not done anymore.
Absolutely. Andrew.
Yes, just in terms of the first recommendation, I do know that last session, Katie's Law, which was to repeal antiquated language referring to persons with disabilities in the Commonwealth, was stalled late because they want to have a commission that is basically looking at all antiquated laws. So I think that's going to be part of the new language for Katie's Law coming up. So I don't know if that's something we want to consider trying to watching that or reaching out to them to see if this could be included if and when that commission is formed.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. That's really good information to have. Okay. My 2 cents, I like the idea of the addressing chapter 113. We can never guarantee that someone won't notice this law on the books and take advantage of it. So I think our best bet is to ensure that the language no longer exists, so no one can start a modern reinterpretation of it. And Alex, I did like your suggestion of that temporary injunction against using that particular law. Not that we're seeing examples of it, but just in case. Any other questions or discussion on either of these recommendations, either chapter 113 or the formal apology from the medical schools? Okay. All right, back to you, Anne. And you're muted. I don't know if you're.
So we'll turn it back to Alex to talk about the framework of remembrance recommendations. And Alex,
Alex, these are our last three things to take up, I think, folks. I will have other stuff to discuss, I know, but little things here and there. But these are our big recommendations for how we go forward. So there are three recommendations for kind of framework for remembrance and looking ahead and what actions we can take to kind of take all these single issues that we see in the records and cemeteries and kind of look at them from up above and say, what's the bigger thing that we see? So if I can have the next slide, please. The first of these is the Museum and Memorialization Initiative. Sorry, hard to say that one. Creating a statewide museum and resource hub to preserve institutional history and honor former residents, tell the stories of the independent living movement, deinstitutionalization, and disability inclusion. The recommendation here is to form a feasibility committee to deliver a report on potential physical and digital models. I think that we have partners in the senator and the state rep and some of these other folks in thinking about what that committee could look like and the leverage to push that idea forward and where it lives and kind of what we do. And obviously we want that work to begin to get done, but this is in response to the fact that we know that there's not funding available for this right away, and that even putting together a working group, there's not funding for that either. And so I think it's a symbolic thing and not a light one, right? We get to say how significant this history is, but and get the ball rolling on something. It seems like every time that we've discussed this, it's been hard to get beyond the idea that we need a group of people who are somewhat expert on this to kind of get together and sit down and talk it through. So we could get more detailed about exactly who we think should be on that committee. But I think that's the kind of overarching recommendation right now, is that there is a need for memorialization and that there is a need for some kind of museum space, and that we can start the work of collaboration to think about that, even if we don't have the funds to kind of push it forward right now. The next slide, please. Oh yeah, we can. So we'll go one by one with these ones. Let's do that because these are big. These are big. So questions on that, thoughts about that, ideas that folks have, or things that we should include with that recommendation. I know it's more limited than maybe what we'd dreamed of a couple of years ago, but it's not nothing to call for it and start that process, because there's no, oh gosh, what is there? There's one physical disability history museum in the country right now, and it's run as part of a haunted house show at the same time. So it's not exactly the model of what we'd love to see. I think it'd be big for us to call for this. So. Okay, let's move to the next one. This is one we've discussed before. We discussed in March and there was general agreement about it, but we never took a vote on it. So I think everyone at that meeting had said that they approved of it, but we will need to vote on it formally. And this is a recommendation for a formal state apology from the governor, issuing an apology for the neglect of these institutional cemeteries that we're talking about, the mishandling of the records that we've identified, and the overall systemic harm done to disabled individuals in state institutions. This is important because it acknowledges that while some received care, many others were harmed, and it confronts the legacy of institutionalization that has often failed to prioritize the well-being of disabled people It would be a very powerful act of recognition, helping survivors and descendants begin to heal, and it reinforces the state's commitment to accountability and disability justice. For folks who were not at the meeting in March, what we looked at then was that there have been other state apologies issued by both Democrats and Republicans, by split legislatures of both parties across the country. I think we found 5 or 6 examples. They're very moving and powerful. You know, where we're at the center of this because we had some of the first of these types of institutions, and where the president, we discussed, had apologized for the radiation experiment studies that were done at Fernald and Rentham in the 1990s, but there was no apology from the state at the time. It feels like it's overdue and something that we should ask for, and I think would be a very powerful first step toward engaging with these recommendations. So, questions on that? Or things that you'd like to see reflected in the language of that? I think we'll have the chance to, you know, share in the report some of the other language from the other states, or to say, hey, we'd really like this thing to be a big point here. And so if there's something that you really think needs to be said in this, or a certain way it needs to be said to be meaningful, definitely please say so. All right, let's move to the next and last of the 3. This last one is integrating disability history into K-12 education. So every state has certain subjects that they say are a priority that they want to be taught in schools because they're important, often because they're important parts of what that state's history is. And they think that school kids should grow up knowing this. It's probably why all of you who went through schools in Massachusetts at some point had to read a page of Emerson. And growing up in California, I had to read John Muir for the same reason. People from the state with some big tie to the history. But it's important because younger folks then encounter things that they otherwise might not ever hear about. And we know that the silence around this has been a significant reason why these sites and places and disabled folks continue to be treated badly. So what this recommendation is to ask the legislature to take action to commit to incorporating disability history in Massachusetts into the public social studies curriculum, with a focus on institutional history and its impact on individuals and communities, really seeing the people in these stories, the evolution, how disability rights, advocacy, and inclusion came out of that, the connections between the past injustices and the present day. And this is important because also there are just a lot of disabled students who I, as a former high school teacher, I can tell you, having taught disability history, see themselves in that history. And it's really profound to see yourself reflected in history and people like you reflected in history. And it helps for comparing past and present. So there's an example of something like this that was done a few years ago by the state legislature around Holocaust education. And they felt that that was very important to have in the curriculum. And obviously some of this stuff unfortunately connects in that way. And I think when I've mentioned that this might be something that the commission would vote on, I've found generally that people are very, very receptive to it. A lot of legislators used to be educators or have disabilities themselves, or people in their lives who are disabled. And I think teachers understand what we're talking about. So that would be the last of these 3 recommendations. Any questions on that? Any things you want said or taught or included? All right. And I'm going to send it back to Kate and Anne.
So does anybody have any recommendations for the commission?
I do think at some point we'll want to take up how this work continues. But I don't know, do we want to take a vote on these recommendations first, or what do you think is a good, I can certainly share some thoughts on about how this work could continue, but Kate and Ann, what do you think?
It might be helpful to vote on the current recommendations before we consider any additional. If we rewind. So the first, Andrew, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, do you want someone to make a motion? I'm happy to make a motion to approve the recommendations as presented.
Okay, so moved. Do we have a second to approve the recommendations as presented? That means everything that we've just gone over between myself and Alex regarding both burials and framework for remembrance.
Jim Cooney.
Yes.
I second.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. All right, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Great. Thank you, Kate. This is Christine Roa from Cedar. And once again, I'll read out members' names in alphabetical order by your last names. When your name's called, please respond with yes, no, present, or abstain. I'll begin with Elise Aaron,
Present.
Kate Benson,
Yes.
Sister Linda Bessam, Reggie Clark, Reggie, did you say yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. James Cooney,
Yes.
Samuel Edwards,
Yes.
Anne Fract,
Yes.
Alex Green, Alex Green.
Oh, sorry, yes.
Okay, thank you. Bill Henning, Camille Karabeck,
Yes.
Andrew Leverell,
Yes.
Evelyn Mateo,
Yes.
Lori Maderos,
Yes.
Vesper Moore, and Brenda Rankin.
So yes or no for the approval? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did I miss anyone? Okay. We are all set.
Thank you, Christine. And do you want to put forth the discussion for further recommendations again, now that we've voted?
Yeah, so does anybody think there's anything else that we should consider?
And I believe, Alex, you had something.
A couple of things. I think one big one we probably can't decide today, but we should be ready for next week is because the senator and the representative will be here and maybe they can help us answer this, is obviously it's after our work is done, we're done at the end of May, and we submit this report. And we have like I said before, we have lots of friends and allies, and it sounds like they want to get stuff done and they really support doing this stuff, but we don't exist anymore after that. And we don't have the ability certainly to push or to do more research or to hold people accountable. And it doesn't mean it goes away. And I think legislators would, if someone said, we're not doing that, they would help us get folks to step up and answer questions and be accountable. But one question is whether or not the commission continues in some form. It might not have to be so large, actually. It could be a smaller group of people just to make sure that things are accountable. But as a part of that, we had a budget, just so that everybody it knows kind of where we started. We were also given money by the legislature, and that's awesome. And that money was used to pay Cedar to do all of this amazing work. And the reason I raise this now is if it is something we want to do, and we also think that we would need to pay Cedar, there isn't a lot of money in the state right now, and we would need to push really hard for that. And I think make it very clear and known to the senator and to the representative and ask for their help in thinking through how we might go about getting that money to do that. And also keeping the commission going, because it was formed by an act of the legislature through the budget, but that process is kind of over at this point in terms of our ability to get into it. And so I don't know how we would get that continuation, but anyway, it's to say we should ask them about those things if we want those things to be something that we're doing. And I don't know how folks feel about that. And you're the boss. I'll go back to you.
I think that we should also, I think that having it teaching disability in schools is more important than just teaching disability in schools. It's like it's on the road to breaking the stigma.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's something that we really need to do.
Yep, agreed. Samuel,
Oh, I just had a process question. So we voted on the burials and the framework for remembrance, but do we want to vote on that last records access point?
oh yes, thank you for reminding us. We would have completely blown by that one. And that last records access one was the shift in access for family members to access medical records within 50 years of an individual's death, with proof of the deceased and the connection to the deceased. Do we have a motion to accept that recommendation?
Alex, I make a motion to accept the recommendation.
Thank you, Alex. Do we have a second?
This is Andrew. I'll second.
Thank you, Andrew. And we'll do a roll call vote for this one as well, and then we'll take a break, I think.
Thank you, Kate. This is Christine from Cedar. Again, I'm gonna call everyone's name in alphabetical order by your last name. Please respond with yes, no, present, or abstain. All right, Elise Aaron.
Present.
Thank you. Kate Benson.
Yes.
Sister Linda Bessam. Reggie Clark.
Yes.
Thank you. James Cooney.
Yes.
Samuel Edwards.
Yes.
Anne Fract.
Yes.
Alex Green.
Yes.
Bill Henning. Camille Karabeck.
Abstain.
Thank you. Andrew Leverett.
Yes.
Evelyn Mateo.
Yes.
Lori Medeiros.
Yes.
Vesper Moore. And Brenda Rankin.
Yeah. Thanks, Bren.
Thank you so much. Did I miss anyone? I don't believe so. I think we're all set.
That's the last vote of our recommendations. I agree, Brenda. That's awesome.
That is awesome. Thank you, everyone, for the consideration on that and for making that a very easy process. All right. And do we want to give everybody a break?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. If everyone wants to return at 4:00, we'll just talk through some last steps and next meeting. I want to bring everybody back. I know that was a little bit longer than a 5-minute break, but I feel like we all needed it. And I know that we just discussed a few other things that we might consider as recommendations. Was there anyone else who had anything to add for other recommendations that we might consider?
So I have a question. I've got the document up. Am I not seeing, or is it not in here, a recommendation to extend the commission's work?
Alex did bring up some of that conversation in the potential for other recommendations that we may consider. We did have a brief discussion about the fact that there is budget difficulty, to put it nicely. So we do want to decide on some recommendations for next steps.
Can I just say something? I follow, he is a representative from Cambridge, and I might crucify his last name. My apologies ahead of time. Markovitz, maybe. And he did a report card in March on kind of like the state budget, State of the Union, if you will. And he talked about all of the accomplishments that had happened in the past year. And one of the things he stated in there, which was really good news and surprising to me, was that Massachusetts right now has a $9 billion, with a B, billion-dollar rainy day fund. So I know that money is hard and the budget is hard, and it's really scary about, Medicaid right now. But I'm just saying, with $9 billion in the rainy day fund, my head thinks there could be a little wiggle room. That's all.
Okay. Thank you, Lori. Let's hope that there is some wiggle room. Any other recommendations that folks would like to potentially consider? Okay, if not, Anne, I'm gonna turn it back to you because I think that's it for this week. Yes?
I think
Yes.
so.
You were talking about
So-
the
Oh, go ahead, Reggie.
$1 billion rainy day. We don't know what the state budget is going to be, so I say don't touch it until we find out what the state budget is going to be and how much money is going to be allocated for that kind of mess.
Yeah, you've got a great point, Reggie. We don't know what the money situation is going to be. We're certainly keeping an eye on it as we decide how we're going to move forward and what next steps are.
But the 23rd, you haven't told some of us that can't get out there how to get out there. I have no way to get out there.
Oh yeah, Reggie, we need to talk about that.
Always.
Alex or I will try to get in touch with you and we'll see if we can figure something out.
Okay.
Anything for you, Reggie.
You take me in a heartbeat.
We'll figure out a way to get you out here for the celebration.
Okay, good.
All right. All right, Anne, it's back to you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We look forward to seeing you at the next full commission meeting on May 15th. Cedar will be following up with the meeting information. Does that work for everybody?
Yep.
Yes.
If there's any questions before then, you should feel free to contact us. If there's no other items to discuss, can we have a vote to adjourn the meeting?
I want to know about the fire.
What was that, Reggie?
Wanted to know about the fire. They said they're gonna read about how many buildings were damaged.
Oh, and I think Jen, you sent out the article for that, right?
I did. So there has been, as if you all have been following the news or hearing the news, there's been a series of fires, going back, I believe, December or November of last year at, the former, Fernald. And most recently, the state fire marshal has opened an arson investigation into those fires because a pattern has emerged of them happening on Saturdays. And I believe there's a tip line and a possible reward now being offered for information about those fires.
So it's still
Somebody should be
ongoing.
there and tell them if you do something wrong, you should go to jail for
Agreed.
life.
Okay. Thanks, Reggie. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Are you making the motion, Reggie, to adjourn?
Yes, I'm making a motion. Yes.
All right, do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. And now we will do a quick roll call vote to finish it off.
Thanks, Kate. This is Christine again from Cedar. I'll be reading your names in alphabetical order by your last names. And once again, please respond with a yes, no, present, or abstain. We'll begin with Elise Aaron. Kate Benson.
Yes.
Sister Linda Bessam. Reggie Clark.
Yes.
Thank you. James Cooney.
Yes.
Samuel Edwards.
Yes.
Anne Frack.
Yes.
Alex Green. Alex Green.
Yes, sorry.
It's okay.
Yep.
Bill Henning. Camille Karabeck. Andrew Leverell.
Yes.
I'm sorry, Camille, did you respond?
Yeah, I said yes, sorry.
Thank you. No problem. My apologies. Evelyn Mateo.
Yes.
Lori Medeiros.
Yes.
Vesper Moore. And Brenda Rankin. I'm not sure if Brenda's on anymore.
Brenda and Elaine had to log off.
Okay, thank you, Kate. I think, did I miss anyone? All right. Should be all set.
Okay. All right,
Thank you,
Anne.
everybody.
See you next
Meeting
week.
adjourned.
I know.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all.